I'm Commissioner Amy Lathen of District 2, the Vice Chair of the Board, and I'm here with Commissioner Darrel with District 1. We want to just make a few brief statements about things that the Board of County Commissioners have done to date, and try to answer as best we can any questions that you have. It'll be fairly brief, as there is a lot going on right now, and we'll just be proceeding from here. So just in general, we want to give you a quick timeline. The article that was run this morning in the Gazette did not include any information that was released to the Gazette by the Board of County Commissioners yesterday. According to reports, that email apparently was missed. And so we did have a statement, which I believe all of you have received, that we had sent out yesterday. But it did talk about some of the things that have been done. I just want to review very quickly that on May 12th, the Board of County Commissioners did receive a complaint letter from 3 commanders within the Sheriff's Office, and that complaint letter came to all of the county commissioners and our legal counsel. On May 13th, that Tuesday, we immediately went into an executive session to discuss this issue. And at that time, the board took immediate action in the form of a response letter to the sheriff and began an outside investigation of the Sheriff's Office on that day, the day following the complaint letter. I believe there was some mix-up with some travel, but the letter was delivered to the sheriff on May 16th. The investigation began prior to that, but it was May 16th that the letter was delivered to the sheriff. This morning, the Board of County Commissioners did meet in an emergency executive session and received some advice from our legal counsel as well. And I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Glenn to speak to a few of those points.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Darrel Glenn. And you know, I think it's very important that we take a very cautious approach to this whole thing. We did receive a formal letter from the 3 commanders. However, within that letter, we did not receive the level of detail that was expressed in the Gazette's paper today. So I think it's very important, and we've had a discussion and made an agreement as a board and talked to the sheriff that it's important that we have his own separate legal counsel. And I want to make sure that people understand that. You know, as the Board of County Commissioners, we are the funding agencies for all the elective offices. We are responsible for making sure that if there are legal expenses that have to be incurred, that we essentially provide that expense. So we are obligated to provide that legal representation for the sheriff throughout this investigation. And I think it's important. You know, one thing that we're proud of in this country is that there is a presumption of innocence. And I personally, and I think I can speak for my colleagues, we want to independently verify all of this information before we make, public statements. So we're taking a very measured and responsible approach. We have a pending investigation, and we just want to make sure that people are aware that we take this very serious. And we want to make sure that we represent the interests of the county. We're very concerned about the employees. We're concerned about making sure that the sheriff is fairly represented. And we want to make sure that we're responsible stewards of your taxpayer dollars.
I have a question.
Let me just very quickly make sure that it's clear. We've had a number of emails and phone calls and things like that from folks asking if we are going to fire the sheriff. I want to make it very clear. The Board of County Commissioners does not have authority over the sheriff in such a way, in any way, shape, or form. We have a statutory obligation to defend lawsuits that come into the county, either to the county as a whole, to a county office or department, or to an elected official. We have that statutory obligation to defend those lawsuits. We do not have any authority to fire any elected official or take any employment action on an elected official. So that is just simply not something we have the authority to do. And I just want to make sure that that's very, very clear.
Kind of following up on that, could you explain, let's say this investigation determines that all of these accusations are true. What can you do and what might you, you really can't do anything, can you?
Would you like to take that one?
Well, again, he is a separately elected official, accountable to his constituents, everybody here in El Paso County. The board can clearly make a public statement by way of a censure. But we are not in a position where we could demand his resignation. He is within his own rights to decide how he wants to handle that. And again, he is accountable to you. But we are very serious about making sure that we establish a due process procedure in place.
We are able to call for that, but it doesn't have any legal, any kind of legal really muster for that. We can only call for that if that was something we chose to do. As Commissioner Glenn just stated, we have not been provided any of the information that was either printed in detail in the Gazette or alluded to. We just don't have that. We have what was sent to us in the complaint letter and have seen nothing prior to that, prior to May 12th.
Can you talk at all about what was in the complaint letter?
It is actually, at this time, it's in our attorney's office. I believe that there is a letter out there online that someone has put out there, and we are confirming that whether or not it is the same letter that we received.
So it is the same letter?
I can't confirm that yet. I'm waiting for that.
Commissioner Glenn, you know, asking you this in your capacity as both a commissioner and an attorney.
Yes.
Is there any state official who might have the power to remove or suspend the sheriff from his duties? Would that be possible for the governor, for the attorney general? What's the role of the district attorney?
It's my understanding that the answer is no, that it would follow the same procedures. It would have to either be a recall or the sheriff would have to make that action on his own. So we fall under the same guidelines. Again, he's a separately elected official accountable to you. So that might be a question that you want to ask him, but we want to make sure that we preserve all the rights of everybody that are involved.
Did you see anything illegal in what was printed or what was in the letter? Were any laws broken?
Well, that's certainly something
Or
that
just
we would
ethics?
not answer. We would defer those questions to our legal counsel.
Is there an ethics responsibility for elected officials?
Well, I can speak
yeah.
for myself. I think we're all held to our own ethical standard as any individual. We have it's a blessing to be in a position of trust. And with that comes a lot of responsibility. So just like any other elected officials, you are accountable to your constituents and you serve at their pleasure.
Is
To
this
be
the
clear-
first, oh, sorry.
To be clear on this, these actions that you've described, Commissioner taken, were in response to the complaint letter or in response to the report in the Gazette? If they're in
Response to the
response to
complaint
the
letter.
report to the Gazette, why did the commission not act 4 years ago when a report very similar in nature?
We are responding to the complaint letter of May 12th.
Kind of along those lines, is this the first time that you have heard of misconduct with the sheriff?
Well, I can tell you that there have been a lot of, I don't want to say it's the worst kept secret around, that there are rumors that are out there, but rumors are one thing. This is the first time that we've actually been presented evidence where people have been willing to put down their names so that we can actually investigate that. That's extremely important.
Do you have any idea why this is coming out now? Is it related to some of the heat that the sheriff's been under recently?
I certainly don't want to draw any conclusions while the investigation is pending.
And I can say, obviously, we speak on behalf of the board. We can also step aside and speak as individuals. But when we do so, we have to understand that the county has, right now, we have employment litigation in front of us. We need to protect the county. It is very important to us that we protect the county, which is, of course, the county taxpayers, and that we protect the employees who are, right now, out patrolling our streets and taking care of the inmates and the other personnel within our jail. We have an obligation to make sure that our staff has stability and can do their job. And so to the end that we are here in our capacity to protect this county, we need to be very strategic, not strategic, but very careful in that we don't bring any more harm to the county, and that we are very careful with the way we proceed. We do not want to proceed in any way that would bring more litigation upon the county by reacting to something that is not verified via an authentic investigation. So we, as I said, upon receiving the complaint letter on May 12th, we immediately opened an investigation. That is underway. The Gazette simply didn't put that information in the article, both that we had already started that and that we replied to the Gazette yesterday as to their inquiries.
When do you think the investigation will be finished? I mean, any sense on that?
The investigation is pretty complex because there are so many things that are alleged. There are pieces that are the personnel pieces, the sexual harassment and different discrimination allegations. Then there are pieces that relate to budget and financial policies here within county administration. So to the end that we are trying to put the right pieces together, obviously there will be people kind of investigating the budget and fiscal side and people investigating the personnel side. I can't give you a timeline other than to say that we want this resolved as quickly as possible.
The people that made the complaints, are they still are they still working under the sheriff right now? Can you talk
It's
about
our
that?
understanding that he put them on paid administrative
Right.
leave.
That's my
He put them
understanding.
on paid
Yes.
administrative?
Yes.
Is that,
Do they have
Normal
an
protocol?
ability to appeal that, or, I mean, I apologize for not knowing how your personnel system works, but, I mean, say if I'm put on a paid administrative leave and I disagree with that, what would be my recourse?
Well, again, that specific a question I would defer to our legal counsel.
And there are two different policies. I mean,
Mhm.
anyone who is sworn within the sheriff's office is a county employee, but they operate under the sheriff's personnel policy. That's a different policy than what we have. And so if they are sworn, they do operate under that, even though they are still a county employee. And so, of course, we are looking at how we handle this with all that complexity.
I don't know if you guys would know when they were put on paid administrative leave? You know, like, was it right when the complaints were filed or after, or?
Read the Gazette.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the Gazette really lays out a pretty significant timeline that
Is that
has yet to be
confirmed, though?
confirmed. It's not been confirmed by the Board of County Commissioners.
I-
It's been reported by the Gazette.
It was confirmed through our legal counsel to me
Okay,
in a meeting.
Okay.
So I
So
believe it
you
happened
guys-
on May 13th, but that would be a question for the sheriff.
okay.
So the day after you received?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding, but that's not our action. That was an action taken by the sheriff's office.
Right.
Just to be clear, if anybody within the sheriff's office decides to sue because of perceived discrimination, it's the county that's on the line for it, right?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Have you
doesn't-
guys received any of those types of complaints in the last week that you know of that are tied to this?
We have not been formally served with any,
Okay.
we've heard that there might be some claims pending, but we've only been served with notice of the one that you are referencing today.
Thanks.
Is the sheriff liable for any legal action?
Well, again, that's further down the line. Right now, there's a presumption of innocence, and we have a responsibility to go through the normal process to provide appropriate legal counsel and investigate those particular actions. At some point in time in the future, that question may come up. We may have to address that particular question, but right now, we don't have enough information to make that conclusion.
Is legal counsel part of the county, or do you hire outside legal counsel?
Well, in this particular case, you're going to have to hire outside legal counsel because, we originally started this case where our county attorney's office hired one particular firm to represent both the county's interest and the sheriff's interest. Because of the recent allegations, and we feel it's important for a due process standpoint, for not only for the county, but also for the sheriff, you're going to have two separate legal counsels in order to be able to fully investigate that and to fully represent the rights under, the county and the sheriff.
And that is action that's being taken today to separate that.
And from a sort of a personnel procedural point of view, so if I'm a county employee and I have a complaint, I mean, I have a right then as an employee, that's the way the system works, to write a complaint letter.
Absolutely.
Okay. Does it seem right to you then that I have a right to write that letter and then yet my supervisor has a right to put me on paid administrative leave?
Well, in this case, I wouldn't call the sheriff a supervisor.
Okay.
So this is a different situation. And that was a decision that was made without talking to the Board of County Commissioners.
And again, it's just like any employment situation, you still need to follow the chain of command. Because it's not unheard of for disgruntled employees to file complaints against their supervisors, maybe founded or unfounded. So there has to be a procedure that you have to follow. And that's what we want to make sure, that we preserve the integrity of that procedure, but that we get to the bottom of this.
Is there concern that this goes beyond the 3 people that filed the complaint?
Well, I would say, that we're going to find out during the course of the investigation. Our concern as commissioners, we're concerned about the overall morale of the people that have been entrusted to protect and save our community. So we want to make sure that we have a system in place that they feel like, they can get behind and they can support. And we have responsibilities as, to the taxpayers to make sure that we're thoroughly investigating this, giving you the confidence that we have a process in place, that we're going to do an investigation, that we're going to get down to the bottom of it. But I want to make sure that we pump the brakes a little bit here and remember that there's still a presumption of innocence. Because I can tell you the letter that we received did not contain some of that information that was printed in the paper. And I made a commitment to my constituents that before I make any public statements that are calling for a resignation or whatever, I want to be able to publicly state that I verified this information, that I'm just not going off of hearsay.
But what kind of guarantee so you're doing this an investigation, and obviously to complete it, you're gonna have to talk to Sheriff Department employees, who the sheriff can then put on administrative leave or do whatever he wants to. I mean, how do you say you wanna get to the bottom of it, but if the sheriff has the ability to fire people or put them on leave if they talk to you, how do you handle that? Or do you have any kind of guarantee to those employees that their jobs will be protected?
We have asked, I don't have the letter in front of me, I wish I did. Maybe if staff is listening, they could grab it. But the letter that the Board of County Commissioners delivered to the sheriff expressed, I'm paraphrasing, so it was written last week and there's been a lot going on, essentially that we are asking him to treat all employees equally. That is, if they are implicated in any way, either the commanders who sent the complaint or others who are responding or having other issues, that they be treated separately. That means if you're going to put one on administrative leave, perhaps there are others that should, or perhaps none should. But again, we don't have the ability to tell the sheriff what to do with his personnel. We just deal with what happens as a result of that, if something does happen.
Are you concerned that people may not be willing to talk to you and that you might not be able to get to the bottom of this then?
That's always a concern. And we are taking steps this afternoon to make sure that people feel comfortable, that they feel safe to be able to come and talk to us and to the investigators. We are going to be, this is our investigation, the Board of County Commissioners. This is not the sheriff's investigation. We are not the investigators. We will be tracking every step along the way. So we want people to know and feel comfortable to be able to come and talk to really any of us as we really work through this. Commissioner Glenn, again, spoke to this. I believe the Gazette, it sounds to me that the Gazette has more information than we do. So as much as we may want to have a particular reaction to this, which seems like it would be an automatic reaction for us to do something, we do not have much of the information that's being alleged. We'd like to be able to put our own eyeballs on that information. That's very important as 5 people working in county administration to protect this county and take the right steps, that we see this information and that will help guide us in the decisions that we make in the very, very near future.
And we certainly would welcome the Gazette providing us their information.
We would appreciate that very much.
What steps are you taking?
Do you know whether Sheriff Maketa is going to make any public statement on this or hold a conference with media?
I have no knowledge of one way or the other.
Thank you.
What steps are you taking to ensure comfort with sheriff's employees to be comfortable to talk to you?
It's my understanding that there will be some communication coming out, probably from our county attorney's office, to staff to let them know exactly what's happening and what they should be comfortable with, that they should be comfortable being able to speak to someone. So everything is moving very quickly. Thank you.
How is this going to affect the daily operations of deputies and sheriff's office? Their primary role is to protect, serve the public. Is there worries that this might negatively impact the public?
I can tell you we have the best and brightest professional people within our sheriff's department and our first responders. I guarantee you that they will do their job to the best of their ability. I think that's why it's so important for us as the Board of County Commissioners to stand in front of you and let them know that we have their back, essentially, that we're going to support them. And if there are any concerns, whether it's from the sheriff himself or from the employees, that we are open to having those discussions. But I am absolutely not concerned about the level of professionalism within our sheriff's department.
We do have the letter, which we will make available if you don't already have it, just to read it exactly the way we wrote it. According to media reports on May 13th, 2014, the employees who filed the complaints, those are the 3 commanders who filed them on May 12th, have been placed on administrative leave for alleged violation of El Paso County Sheriff's Office policies. The board, that's us, respects your role as an elected official and the laws which allow sworn personnel to serve at the pleasure of the sheriff. However, to the extent that you become aware that any member of your command staff is alleged to have violated El Paso County Sheriff's Office policies, the board strongly encourages you to apply the El Paso County Sheriff's Office administrative leave policy consistently pending further investigation. That went out, that was the letter that we formed on May 13th.
Did he send you a letter back?
No.
Commissioner Glenn, you know, this process of, you know, investigation, so forth and so on, is likely to be long and drawn out, given that multiple lawyers and politicians are involved. And that would imply that Sheriff Maketa will continue to lead the department until he finishes his term. Do you believe that he can do so effectively?
I think that's a question that you need to ask the sheriff. He is
We'd be
the,
glad to.
yeah, he is the elected official. He has an obligation. He's sworn an oath to serve and protect the citizens of El Paso County, and that's a fair question for the sheriff.
Okay. Anybody, anything we didn't ask?
You mean anything that we won't talk about?
Yeah.
No, again, you know, as my closing point, I just want people to understand, and the Board of County Commissioners, we collectively take this very seriously. But we want to make sure that we protect all the rights of people involved. Protect the rights of the county, protect the rights of the taxpayers, the sheriff, and that's why we want to make sure that we have a very thorough investigation. It is our obligation to make sure that we provide credible evidence and give you a sense of confidence that we have done our job as far as looking out for the taxpayers. And I'm confident that we will be able to do that throughout this process. We just ask you to be patient. We don't want to try this, for lack of a better way of stating that, in the media. We have a very thoughtful and deliberative process, but we are trying to lead and provide comfort that we understand the importance of this, but we are going to follow a process that we hope you respect.
It's a great closing statement, and there are a lot of ifs that are still out there. To the timeline, we want to expedite this as much as possible, obviously, for our staff, so that they have that stability in the workplace. We want to be able to obtain the information that is apparently out there so that we can look at that, and depending on how this proceeds, depending on how the investigation goes, the Board of County Commissioners will take further action as we see fit to protect the county and our staff.
Can I ask you one more thing? If any of these employees are going to watch these stories tonight, what would you say to them that are the employees in the sheriff's office right now?
Well, I personally would tell them that we have 100% respect for them, that we are looking into this investigation, but we also want to remind them that we, in public service, have a job to do. And we have a lot of challenges ahead of us coming up through this year, and we want to make sure that people remain focused on that job, but we are going to do our part in protecting their rights, you know, as commissioners. But we want to make sure that we still remain focused, that we are in the customer service business. And, you know, we don't put up a close sign. We are 24/7. We have a job to do. And we hope that people will understand that. But we are going to provide the necessary safety that we can to ensure that it is a privilege to work for the county, and we want to provide an environment that they feel comfortable working in.
And I would just add that we are taking every step as quickly as possible. This is the first time, May 12th was the first time that we ever received any complaints through our personnel, with personnel employment related complaints. Rumor and innuendo is something that you have to be very careful with as it relates to public process and the rights of everyone involved. We are not loitering on this for one moment. We are going to work as fast as possible to make sure that our incredible staff have that stable work environment.
Just to clarify, because when people hear investigation, they think that that means there's going to be an action taken, but really the only action taken from the investigation is, like you said, statutorily to defend any possible legal action, right? Just to clarify.
No, not at this time. The investigation actually is to vet the allegations that have come forward and determine whether or not they are true.
Okay, but in terms of any action after that, though, that doesn't mean anything you guys can do to the sheriff. It's just,
Not directly related to the sheriff. We can only
Yeah.
essentially make statements, but that's on the more political side of it.
Yeah.
The legal defense side of it, there are other actions that the Board of County Commissioners can take.
Like what?
Just in terms of, as we've stated, the sheriff will be represented by separate legal counsel. And the board has different options going forward as to whether or not that legal counsel, we would separate with that legal counsel as well. So there are still a number of steps that we need to take, but all of it has to do with the investigation and what we find.
It probably depends on billable hours, but how much does it cost to get the sheriff his own lawyer?
That I don't know.
I'm sure at some point, all of those bills will come rolling in, and those are public record.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.